reverse.
I did it.
You get it out?
Yes.
Okay. Hi guys, Redneck Computer Geek here. Sorry I'm not in my usual shirt, but it's a little bit cold this time of year. As it is right now, we're tearing the MTD Trans axle out because there's a clicking noise in it that Donovan can hear when he's driving. He says it doesn't seem to show up when it's low. Children. He says that it doesn't show up when it's on low speed, but it definitely is clicking when he brings it up through the RPMs, so we're pretty sure the rear end's got something going in it. So we're going to tear down this MTD Trans axle, do a little bit of documentation on it, just for those who want to know. Right now I'm going to show you exactly what the rear end looks like, for those who are curious. If you look in underneath, here's our axle coming through. This comes around, and this actually, I don't know if this has ever been on video, this is the back side of the brake. And so this handle here is actually his e-brake handle. So he reefs on this in the upward position, and then that pivots here, and then that's what actually works for the braking system. And then the actual transaxle itself is here. Oh, what are you pointing out, Johnny?
I'm pointing out this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, we're pretty sure that most likely it's inside the differential that it's having the issue, but it also could be the input gear up here because, well, we had some learning experiences on how a clutch works. So, a couple of clutch dumps and it could be that, but I'm betting it's inside the differential.
Okay.
Right there. Yeah, leave it right there. So we're just getting ready to tear the transaxle out, and what we ended up discovering was on this side here, I don't know if you can see that in the video, but it literally has play from one side of the case to the other in the entire axle. The other side isn't as bad as this, but that's a pretty good indication something has gone haywire. The other thing is I've noticed I've got a lot of in and out play. Yet again, something's definitely not right inside. So we're going to remove the shifting lever attachment, and then we're going to pull the 4 bolts out, and the whole assembly should go that way once we disconnect the drive shaft. Hi guys, so I figured at this point, while I have it on the bench before I tear it down, that we would take a second in order to look it over and assess just how messed up this thing is. The brake rotor is so loose at this point it floats back and forth all over the area, and you can actually lift it up and down. The input shaft makes some interesting noises, and if you go back and forth with it, if you can see it on video right here, that seal is entirely blown out, leaking fluid everywhere, and it shifts and moves around. The other thing that we've noticed is the drive shafts. There's one side, and it literally has a good almost 1/8 of an inch of play back and forth. And the drive shaft on the other side doesn't have as much play up and down and sideways, but definitely still has quite a bit of movement. So at this point, we're going to take it and tear it down and see exactly what's going on inside after we clean it up. Alright, so hopefully at this point in the video you can see my talking head down here next to the table. We've got our transaxle here. We've got a couple of different things in order to take this apart. If you notice, I'm not wearing my usual Redneck Computer Geek shirts. I'm not going to wear a custom shirt from Spreadshirt. While I'm taking apart a transaxle, you're just plain going to get anything you're wearing dirty. Good gloves, icky shirt, icky pants, trust me, you're going to need it along with a ton of paper towels. The other thing you're going to need, assortment of flatheads, because you're going to have a seal you're going to have to break out, a rubber mallet in order to hit that seal, In the case of this MTD Trans axle, it is a 3/8 nut that it uses, 3/8 bolt that it uses all the way around. I use an electric impact, but what I do is I put a couple of hits onto every single one until they start to break out, going a crisscross pattern. And then once they start to break, then I pull every single one out, going back across in a crisscross pattern. This is my first time taking apart a transaxle of this nature. I've done all kinds of peerless spicers, all the other types. This is my first time, so thanks for joining me. The other thing I'm going to tell you is in the description, I have a link for this. It's a PDF teardown of the entire transmission, which is a great thing to have. With the PDF, you can point out different things. You've got your shifting bar here. In underneath this little nub on the front, this is where you're going to find that there is a small little tiny spring and a small little ball. That's your D10 ball for when you shift through, like so. The other thing that this will tell you is it'll tell you the different ways to break down the internal parts. The other thing that it will tell you is that on some of these they actually have a through bolt through here, and that's about it. So at this point we're going to start ratcheting on it and get it broken down. The other thing that I'll note that I've learned with the peerless transmissions is setting your thumb on the seam of the transmission. That way when the seam does start to pop, you'll actually feel it, which is what it just did on this end. Okay, at this point we've got every single bolt out of it. Now we should be able to pop off the top while having the brakes still in place. If you're going to be rebuilding everything, you might as well take the brake assembly off before doing this part. If you're dealing with a peerless or a spicer, a lot of times you can't manage to take it apart without disassembling the brake anyway. But we can at least take the top off without having to deal with the brake assembly. Now in this case, this one managed to pop already across the front. As you can see, I can get into it and move it. Now, the reason why I have multiples of these is if it was glued down with a really good RTV sealant, then what you would do is you'd start on an edge where there's reinforcements in the case, and then you would tap it in, and then tap the next one in, and then follow that up with tapping the next one in on the next reinforcement, and from there you would work around the case. So, since this one seems to have come loose quite easily, we'll move the brake lever a little, and up we go. Yeah, if you had smell-o-vision right now, you would be able to smell the fact that this smells burnt. It definitely has been worked over. For those who are wondering, the D10 ball is right here. When you rotate this around, you can see it. Now, to demonstrate how one of these works, your input shaft comes down into here and it rotates both of these at the same time. Now, as this comes over, it engages to one side, and then when you hit neutral, they both float right there in neutral. They both do nothing. And then when you go all the way over, you detent the other side, and then that one turns. Okay, so this entire rear housing comes out like so, and this should be a solid unit, but if you look, that is not exactly solid. So I'm assuming what we broke was definitely inside that housing, as far as the clicking noise. As far as bushings go, that one is worn to the point it actually clicks. As far as the rest of the assembly is concerned, if you were going to take this out, what you would end up doing is you would pull this up and out like so. Then grab this gear and lift it. And if you do it right, you should be able to pull it sideways and set it out. And that leaves your brake in place and you don't have to mess around with your brake pads. Now, if you're going to be doing what I'm doing and cleaning the entire situation out, then you might as well break this down. If you're just pulling it apart so that you can do like I'm doing and put a locker in this, then you don't need to pull it out. Alright guys, from here on, we're going to work on building up a locker.